So picture this. A group of uh, very important politicians are all gathered at a nice house in New Delhi for an afternoon birthday party.
Right, it's for an 84th birthday, so it's a big deal.
Exactly. The guest of honor is turning 84. People are mingling. The mood is set for a celebration. They're literally getting ready to cut the cake.
But they never actually eat the cake.
No, they don't. Instead of singing happy birthday, the leader of the group just turns to the room and makes this, sudden announcement. He says they're leaving the house right now and they are marching straight to the prime minister's back door.
It's an incredible scene to visualize.
It really is. Just like that, they walk right out of the party and step straight into a massive political showdown.
And, this is exactly how the events unfolded according to the newspaper clipping we are exploring today.
Yeah, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking really closely at this single news report to understand how a quiet birthday gathering transformed into a completely chaotic street protest.
It's a fascinating look at political strategy and, well, how quickly things can escalate in India between the ruling government and the opposition.
Right, so to set the stage for you, the two main sides here are India's main opposition party. That's the Congress Party, led in this specific event by a politician named Rahul Gandhi.
And on the other side, you have the ruling government, which is led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Right, and I want to be super clear right up front. Because this clipping covers highly charged, heavily polarized political events, our goal today is absolutely not to take a side.
Exactly. We are not endorsing any viewpoints here. We are strictly acting as messengers.
We just want to look at how these dramatic events unfolded on the page in front of us and break down the tactics in plain, simple English.
And the way the story begins on that page relies entirely on the element of surprise. The newspaper clipping actually describes the opposition's actions as an escalating strategy.
Meaning they kept it totally secret.
Completely under wraps until the very last minute. The Congress Party members of Parliament were told to just gather at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at a specific address, 10 Rajaji Marg.
Which happens to be the residence of Mallikarjun Kharge.
Right, the Congress president. He's the one turning 84.
So the invitation was literally just for a cake cutting. I mean, it is a classic decoy play.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in sports, you line up looking like you're going to pass the ball to the right, which draws all the defenders to that side, and then you suddenly sprint to the left.
It's a tactic designed entirely to catch the authorities off guard.
And it worked, right? Because the police were perfectly positioned for a quiet, private party.
Yeah, exactly. When you have top-level politicians gathering anywhere, the police know their movements. Security forces were totally prepared to just secure a residence for a nice afternoon celebration.
They were absolutely not prepared for Rahul Gandhi to tell the assembled politicians they were skipping the cake and marching to the rear entrance of the prime minister's residence.
And he didn't even wait for a debate about it. The text notes, he just set off on foot.
He just started walking.
Yeah, and the other politicians basically had to follow his lead. And the sheer geography of this is what made the decoy play work so incredibly well.
Right, because the prime minister's house was only about 100 meters away from the birthday party.
It's practically next door in terms of a march. The police had almost no time to react before the crowd was already moving down a street.
Which completely changes the dynamic of the afternoon. A 100-meter dash by high-profile leaders heading straight for the prime minister's residence turns a quiet street into a flashpoint instantly.
The report actually notes that the Delhi police scurried into action. They were caught entirely on the back foot.
Scurried is a great word for it.
Yeah.
And that scramble resulted in a massive 3-hour sit-in right on the street.
3 hours of just total gridlock.
Yeah, and these are some of the most famous politicians in the country, physically resisting the police.
Yeah.
The newspaper describes Rahul Gandhi lying flat on the road.
Which makes it incredibly difficult for the authorities to move him.
Exactly. And he was surrounded by other major figures doing the exact same thing, like Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, another very prominent leader. She was actually physically carried away by the police.
And the clipping reports that as she was being lifted, she was shouting, "Narendra Modi is a coward."
Wow.
Yeah, it was intense. You also had leaders from other parties there, like Akhilesh Yadav from the Samajwadi Party. He was detained right at the scene.
The quotes coming out of this moment are just fiery. Like while he was being held at a stadium by the police after being removed from the street, Rahul Gandhi actually posted a message online.
What did he say?
He posted on X, he wrote, "Modiji, try every pressure, exert all your might. This fight for justice for students will not stop or be halted."
And another Congress leader, K.C. Venugopal, is quoted in the newspaper saying, This is the beginning of the end of the Modi regime.
So, I mean, the emotions are incredibly high. But we should probably explain the strange part about all of this.
Right. What actually triggered the standoff?
Yeah, because this massive confrontation with the police wasn't over like tax policy or a foreign war. It was triggered by school exams.
Which might sound surprising if you aren't familiar with the system there. The clipping mentions a recent spate of exam paper leaks.
So for anyone listening who hasn't been following the Indian education system, let's break that down. A paper leak essentially means the questions for a really crucial national exam are secretly sold or distributed before the test even happens.
It's like someone breaking into the principal's office, taking a picture of the final exam and putting it on the internet.
Right. But the scale of these exams is just staggering. We are talking about millions of students taking these tests.
And for a lot of families, these exams are the single most important pathway to a successful career. It's their shot at social mobility.
Right. Students study for years. Families spend huge amounts of money they barely have on tutoring.
So when a major national exam is leaked, it completely invalidates all that hard work. It ruins the integrity of the test and usually forces the whole thing to be canceled.
Which just shatters public trust. I mean, if you feel the system is so corrupt that wealthy people can just buy the answers, the anger is going to be explosive.
The students feel entirely cheated out of their future. And that underlying anger is the fuel for this entire protest.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the politicians lying in the street are demanding massive education reform. They're using this highly visible march to force the government to address a system that millions of people feel is fundamentally broken.
But, you know, a 3-hour standoff on a street corner can't just last forever. Eventually, someone has to blink.
Or at least try to find a way out, yeah.
Right. So the text says the government sent out 2 emissaries to negotiate a peace. They sent the Minister of State, Jitendra Singh, and the Home Secretary, Govind Mohan.
They went to talk directly with the Congress leaders and find a way to end the sit-in.
But what is so fascinating to me is that both sides walked away from that little huddle with completely contradictory stories about what was actually said.
Total opposite versions of reality. The government's negotiator, Dr. Singh, claimed that Rahul Gandhi was in a, quote, mood for conflict.
He basically accused the Congress Party of shifting the goalposts.
Right, claiming they changed their core demands right in the middle of the conversation just to keep the protest going.
According to the government, Congress originally just wanted a guarantee that there would be a detailed debate about the exam paper leaks in Parliament.
Which sounds like a fairly standard political request.
Exactly. But then, the government says, the protesters suddenly demanded the immediate resignation of the Union Education Minister.
Dharmendra Pradhan.
Right, and they claimed this new demand was absolutely non-negotiable.
But the Congress Party flatly denied this version of events. They insisted they never changed their story at all.
Right, they said they arrived at the negotiation with 4 very specific demands right from the beginning.
And if we look closely at those 4 demands, they actually tell us a lot about the strategy here. Let's break them down simply.
Yeah, let's do it. So 2 of the demands are focused on the long-term root of the problem. First, they wanted the education minister to resign.
And second, they demanded a formal debate about the exam leaks in Parliament.
Okay, so that's the big picture stuff.
Right. Now, the other 2 demands were focused on the immediate conflict happening on the ground. They demanded that the police officers who used force against students be punished.
And they wanted the prime minister to make a public statement about that punishment.
Exactly. And finally, the 4th demand. They wanted the police to drop all charges against the civilian protesters who were arrested the day before this march.
Okay, so looking at this, when you demand the immediate resignation of a top cabinet minister during a street negotiation, you know the government isn't going to just say yes, right?
No, of course not.
So it makes me wonder, when negotiations break down like this, with 2 completely different stories of what was asked, how much of this is about actually getting demands met versus just making a very loud public statement?
That is the crucial question. Demanding a minister's resignation operates less as a genuine request they expect to be granted and more as a stalling tactic.
To guarantee the standoff continues.
Exactly. It keeps the cameras rolling. It highlights a core dynamic of modern political protests. Often, the goal of a high-profile demonstration isn't to secure a quiet compromise in a back room.
The goal is the public spectacle itself.
Right. By making maximalist demands, you show your supporters that you are fiercely fighting for them and you ensure the issue stays at the very top of the news cycle.
Which brings us to a really important piece of this puzzle. That 4th demand you mentioned, insisting the police drop charges against protesters from the previous day.
Yeah.
That demand pulls the curtain back on a much wider conflict. Because this wasn't just a sudden one-day event organized by politicians.
Yeah, not at all.
There was massive civilian unrest happening at the exact same time, which is really driving this entire confrontation.
And the newspaper report shifts its focus here, away from the Prime Minister's residence and over to a place called Jantar Mantar.
Can you explain what Jantar Mantar is for our listeners?
Sure, it's a historic observatory in New Delhi, but in modern times, it also serves as the traditional designated protest site in the city. It is really the beating heart of civilian demonstrations.
So this is where regular citizens, students, and families were gathering to protest those exam leaks.
Exactly, and the text details a very serious escalation there on Monday, which was the day before the politicians executed their decoy march.
Right. The authorities launched a severe crackdown on the civilian protesters.
The language in the report indicates a significant use of force. It states that security personnel almost completely cleared the area on Monday. But the crucial detail is how they did it.
Right. The clipping says the police reportedly used shock batons and pellet guns on the crowds.
Which is a huge deal. The clipping notes this was reportedly the first time such weapons had been used in Delhi in this specific kind of civilian protest scenario.
Just to clarify, a pellet gun is a crowd control weapon that fires hundreds of small metal or plastic projectiles all at once.
Yeah, they can cause serious injuries.
Using shock batons and pellet guns against civilians who are just protesting school exams, I mean, that is a massive escalation of force.
It really is.
It feels like the police essentially tried to plug a leak in a dam with force on Monday. But the pressure of public anger over these ruined exams was just way too high.
That's a great way to look at it.
When you plug one hole, the water finds another way, and eventually the dam just bursts.
And the pressure behind that dam wasn't just the students anymore. The crackdown seems to have created a boomerang effect.
What do you mean?
Well, the use of force on Monday didn't scare people away, it actually galvanized them. The clipping notes that the crowds regrouped on Tuesday.
I see.
Yeah, in the morning there were maybe 200 to 300 people. But by Tuesday evening, the crowd had swelled into the thousands, completely overwhelming the area and spilling out onto the surrounding roads.
So the force used against the students became a second layer of injustice, which then drew even more people out into the streets. And there is a very peculiar phrase used in the source material to describe this massive civilian gathering. I had to read it twice.
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
The newspaper actually refers to the protest site as being run by the Cockroach Janta Party.
Which stands out sharply in what is otherwise a fairly standard news report.
Totally.
A note at the bottom of our source material confirms that this text is reproduced exactly as it was originally printed.
So it's not a typo on our end.
Right, and the phrase cockroach Janta Party is clearly a pejorative.
An insult, basically.
Yes, an insulting twist on the name of a real political group, likely the Common Man's Party or Aam Aadmi Party, which operates in India.
Seeing an outright insult embedded directly in a news report tells you so much about the environment this is all happening in.
It really does.
When even the names of political parties are being twisted into derogatory jokes in print, it completely strips away the illusion of objective reporting.
It reveals the deep polarization of the moment. The atmosphere is so emotionally charged that the lines between neutral observation and political combat just dissolve.
The language itself becomes just another weapon in the standoff.
Exactly.
It is a vivid reminder of how messy this situation is on every single level. I mean, we started this deep dive looking at a group of politicians dodging a birthday cake to run down the street.
Right.
But as we trace the events backward, we found the real engine driving the chaos.
The timeline reveals a very clear chain reaction.
Yeah.
It began with the systemic failure of the exam papers, which ruined the prospects of millions of students.
That systemic failure sparked genuine civilian outrage, drawing regular people to Jantar Mantar.
Then the authorities responded to that outrage with an unprecedented level of force on Monday, bringing shock batons and pellet guns into the streets of the capital.
Which, of course, only amplified the anger, causing the civilian crowds to multiply by thousands by Tuesday evening.
And seeing that massive wave of public frustration, the top political leaders of the opposition recognized a critical moment.
They took that anger, weaponized it with a decoy maneuver at an 84th birthday party, and dropped it right at the rear entrance of the Prime Minister's residence.
Leaving us with the image of famous leaders lying flat on the pavement, surrounded by police, locked in a dispute over demands that were arguably designed to be rejected.
It is a masterclass in how a specific grievance, like a leaked test paper, can rapidly snowball into a national crisis that consumes the entire political apparatus.
It demonstrates the incredible speed at which localized anger can be elevated into a national spectacle. The mechanics of the protest, from the sudden march to the shifting negotiations, were all perfectly calibrated to maximize visibility.
Which leaves us with a really difficult question about the nature of modern democracy and the way we resolve conflicts today.
Yeah.
We live in an era of instant news, where every action is broadcast live and social media amplifies every confrontation.
Right, everything is visible.
So when leaders create a highly dramatic, intensely visual, protest-like turning a birthday party into a sprint toward a police barricade, does that spectacle actually speed up the difficult work of government reform? Like, does creating a viral image of defiance force the system to fix the broken exams faster?
Or does the drama of the spectacle make true compromise impossible? Because when the cameras are running and every demand is public, backing down looks like a defeat.
Exactly. It hardens the standoff, forcing both sides to dig in deeper to avoid looking weak in front of their supporters.
It is a constant tension between the need to be heard and the need to govern.
The next time you see a massive standoff on the news, try to look past the political theater happening in the foreground. Look for the broken tests, the compromised systems, and the deeply rooted anxieties hiding just underneath all that noise.
There is always a deeper story.
There really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We love taking a single clipping and finding the massive story hiding inside it. And next time you see a birthday cake waiting on a table, just remember, you never know where the party's actually headed.